A death threat against the Australian Prime Minister is the latest in a string of Chinese emails threatening leaders of Taiwan, Canada, Italy, Denmark, and South Korea. The threats come as New York-based performing arts company Shen Yun tours theaters across the world, putting on performances of live music and classical Chinese dance. Here to tell us more is Levi Brody, Executive Director at the Falun Dafa Information Center. So, Levi, thank you for joining us. So what more can you tell us about this latest threat on New York-based performing arts Shen Yun?
Sure. Well, thanks very much for having me. So there were a couple of threats that went to Australia over the last couple of weeks, and the latter of the threats essentially was saying if they didn't stop Shen Yun from performing in Australia, they were going to blow up the residence of the Prime Minister there. And we believe that indeed triggered an evacuation of those residents. The Prime Minister was moved out for at least several hours so they could check his residence. So that was the gist of the email threat that was sent.
So what happened afterwards? Did the performance go on as scheduled?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something to be very clear is that these threats have been following Shen Yun for almost 2 years now. And in every single case, the show has gone on without delay. And there has been obviously no harm to people. This is really a scare tactic, but obviously these threats need to be taken seriously. I mean, threatening to bomb the leader of a country, sometimes they're mass shooting threats. And so the security apparatus in Australia, like in other countries, do take it seriously. They do look at the theaters. They do look at in this case, the residence of the Prime Minister, and just make sure everything is safe. But yeah, all performances are continuing without a hitch.
So, Levi, have these threats increased in frequency over the years? Or, I mean, it seems like we're covering it a lot more recently, but have they increased or have they stayed around the same?
They go in waves, I would say. Right now is Shen Yun's touring season. They usually tour from the end of December into early May. And we tend to see more of these threats coming in during the tour season, not just to the headquarters at Shen Yun, but to the theaters and the countries where Shen Yun is touring. But even in what I would say Shen Yun's off season, yeah, there are threats mostly to the headquarters of Shen Yun, which is in New York. And I think that's another thing also to remember is this is an American company. Almost half the staff are Americans. The other half are largely international, a large contingent from Europe, Australia. And so these threats are fairly consistent, but they do go up a little bit during the tour season, which is where we are now.
What evidence do we have that this is coming from the Chinese regime?
Well, I think there's two things I would point to. First is the pattern of evidence, which is the patterns are very clear. We have dozens, literally dozens of letters from Chinese diplomats directly telling theaters, local government leaders not to have Shen Yun perform, stop them, and in some cases, implied threats, economic coercion, that kind of thing. So clearly this is something CCP is very interested in doing, is canceling Shen Yun worldwide and stopping it. Now, the bomb threats are sort of unique, as I understand it, to stopping Shen Yun and trying to silence the broader Falun Gong community. And the evidence there is very clear because some of the Taiwanese authorities, their criminal investigation unit, in fact, of their police, trace some of these threats back to Xi'an, China, in fact, close to a Huawei research center. So that shows us clearly that some of these threats are coming from China. And of course, if you look at the broader pattern of intimidation and thuggery that the Chinese regime has been engaged for years, it's obvious there's only one actor on the world stage that would try to stop Shen Yun in this manner, and that's Beijing and the CCP.
So Shen Yun's tagline, its motto is China before communism, right? And it does this in the form of dance and music. What has been the impact of Shen Yun when it comes to showing what China truly is?
Well, I think that's a great question because that speaks to the heart of the question everybody's asking, which is why? Why go after a dance company with these kind of tactics, with this kind of ferocity? And the answer, as you pointed out, is in the tagline. I mean, Shen Yun is showing the world that not only does China have this wonderful, hopeful, spiritual culture that was almost destroyed by China, but that's the real Chinese culture. It's not what the CCP has tried to be push on people for many, many decades. So that essentially exposes the CCP as a fraud that it is. It's not the true shepherd of China, the Chinese people, or its culture, and they're terrified of that. It is also a show that puts on stage for people all around the world to see the true tyranny of the CCP. In many cases, showing the persecution of Falun Gong or other groups live on stage, and so exposing the dirty laundry of the CCP for these two reasons, it really is terrified of Shen Yun and completely explains why they would resort to these kind of tactics to try and stop the company.
So how have political leaders been responding to these threats?
Well, the initial response, which I understand, is confusion, because this is, again, why would the largest totalitarian regime on earth resort to these kind of tactics to stop a music and dance show? But once they understand where this is coming from and why, the response is as you would be expected. We've had officials in the UK, United States, Taiwan, normally members of Congress, members of Parliament coming out saying, obviously, this kind of transnational repression is unacceptable. And it's not just an issue about Shen Yun and the company. This is an issue of sovereignty and really national security. If the Chinese regime can try and reach into other countries and dictate what people are allowed to see and watch at the theater, let alone think, that's a real big problem. And I think a lot of officials are now standing up and articulating that it needs to stop.
Okay, Levi, just one final question. Is there anything viewers at home can do to support Shen Yun and as well to go against this apparent operation by the Chinese regime?
Well, I'd say the best thing is to go see the show yourself, because not only you get a wonderful experience, but it also is sort of demonstrating that you're not going to kowtow to the fear and the type of tactics that the Beijing is trying to unleash on the world. I think that would be the main thing to do, but also the discussions online. If you want to engage there, if you're active online, get on there and share what you think on these stories and how this is not really just an issue of Shen Yun. This really needs to be an issue of safeguarding the democratic countries and spaces that we have, and the sovereignty and national security that we enjoy.
Okay, well, Levi, always enjoy speaking with you. Thank you for giving us your time today.
Thank you so much.